Hey, welcome back to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and today I'm going to be doing something slightly different and taking you along with me as I go urban sketching. Despite living in London for many years, I haven't really explored it yet, but recently I've started a cafe series where I've been going around London painting all the beautiful cafes and restaurants that I have seen, essentially combining my love of travel with my love of art. This is just a little bit of a sneak peek to the series of the prettiest cafes in London that I have done so far. You can catch more on my Instagram at Sketches.n.Scrubs, and if you follow, you'll also get to be a part of the giveaway that's about to happen. At the end of this video, I'll give you some behind the scene clips and also mini reviews of each of these places. But for now, I thought it'd be nice if I took you with me to Peggy Porschen. I was initially quite nervous about urban sketching or painting in public or on location, but having done it a few times in a few different locations, I've got a bit more comfortable, and I hope that with the tips in this video, you too will feel inspired and comfortable to try it out and to explore your own city. So perhaps unsurprisingly, the fifth location that I went to is Peggy Porschen Cakes. It's absolutely beautiful with lots of florals and pinks and teacups and cakes. It's the perfect location for anyone with a sweet tooth and is centrally located in Belgravia near Victoria Station. So I found a spot, I got my supplies out, and then I started my piece. I'll make a specific video about what supplies I use when I go urban sketching, but essentially you want to keep it light and just bring the essentials with you. For me, this consists of a pencil, two pens, my paints, a brush, and some paper, so whether that be a sketchbook or some loose sheets. As you can see, I tend to like to start things off by doing a very light pencil sketch, just to make sure that I've got everything the way that I want it, that I have the proportions right. And this is really the time that I take to make certain artistic choices, for example. So it's not everything that I see that I will include in the painting, because sometimes that will just overcrowd it. So it really just depends on what I want to capture. I then ink it with some waterproof pens, so these could be Bic Biros, which are the cheapest, uni pens, which are my favorites, or microns, which are also quite popular, and that's just so that when I add watercolor as I'm doing now, it doesn't smudge and it doesn't disappear. If you're like me, one of the hardest things with painting or with creating art is figuring out what exactly you're going to paint or where you're going to paint. For me, this time it was actually a little bit more straightforward because I knew that I wanted to explore the cafes that were around the area. So with a quick Google search and Google Maps, I was able to find Peggy Porschen. That's one of the things that I would recommend. Find somewhere that you think you find interesting or that carries some sort of importance to you or brings back certain memories. It doesn't have to be a specific reason, but the first thing is to find out what you're going to paint. As I mentioned, at the moment I'm doing an urban sketching series where I'm going through really cool cafes and restaurants, and here are just a few examples of what I've done so far. You can catch more pictures and reels on my Instagram at Sketches.n.Scrubs. Let me know down below in the comments which out of these so far is your favourite cafe painting. And if you haven't already done so, then you should subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss weekly videos. If you have already subscribed, thank you so much. You're the real MVP. The next thing is when you actually get there. So for example, with Peggy Porschen, there were so many beautiful things. I didn't know whether I should paint the inside, should I paint the food, the cakes, the drinks, the florals. There were just a lot of different areas. And the more I looked, the more I saw and the more I wanted to paint. But ultimately, one of the things that I recommend is to just paint what you prefer or what grabbed your attention first, what you find most striking. And ultimately, I knew that what caught my eye first was the outside of the building. The stunning florals, the attention to detail, just everything on there. It just made it stand out so much in a standard street in London. So I knew that even if later on I may want to paint the inside, the outside was my favourite bit. And it also comes down to what you enjoy painting and sometimes your strengths. So for example, I enjoy painting the outside of buildings, and although I also enjoy painting food, I know that that is not one of my strengths, and I didn't want to get frustrated. I didn't have much time, so I knew, let me paint my favorite thing, the thing that I know I'm good at and the thing that I'm going to enjoy most. And for me, that was the outside of the building. The next thing to do is to find where you're going to set up. So ideally you want to sit in a place where you have a good view of what you're going to paint, good perspective, not much stuff in the way. You can set something up. If it's somewhere that has a table, that's even better. So for me at Peggy Porschen, it would have been pretty much either at the opposite cafe, which would have had an okay view, or across the street on the steps of somebody's house that probably had the best view. Now, that is not what I do, but that is what in theory would make the most sense. What I in fact did is I stood in front of Peggy Porschen very quickly, and that's where I did my pencil sketch just to get a rough idea. And then I had a picture for reference as well, and then I actually sat like outside of it, so the perspective was off, but I could see all the colors, I could see all the details, and I, to be honest, just wanted to be there and relax there and enjoy myself and have a coffee and eat the cakes and everything. So I kind of wanted it to be a bit more of an experience. From a painting perspective, that isn't ideal, but from a whole urban sketching perspective, I guess it's, you know, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. If you want to get an accurate painting, then I would definitely recommend getting a good perspective and a good view. But if you're just doing it to enjoy it, then whichever way works for you is fine. So this is how I did it. One of the biggest struggles for me when it comes to painting in public is the fact that it's in public. It's being seen by people. Sometimes it's feeling embarrassed that perhaps they may look at my art and not think it's that nice. Sometimes it's just the pressure of being watched. Like, there's just a lot of feelings around it, not all of which are positive. But that being said, having done it more and more, I'm getting more comfortable with it. And the main reason for that is that people are just, for the most part, incredibly nice. Like, people are looking because they are curious, they're intrigued, they're quite often impressed, they're just really, really kind. So I think if you're painting in a public place where there's a lot of people walking by and a lot of foot traffic, then eyes and some comments are just part of the territory. But from my experience so far, it's all been curious eyes and very lovely comments.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks so
Do you
much.
mind if I take a picture of it?
No, no, of course, it's fine.
I'm
Thank
gonna take
you.
it with the iPad. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So try to embrace it, try to get comfortable, don't let it distract you too much. Yeah, and try to enjoy it. It's definitely been something that I worried about most, but has been one of the loveliest parts of painting outdoors, just how nice people have been to me. And it hasn't put me off urban sketching at all. So I think give it a try and see what happens. But things that you can do to reduce this happening include wearing headphones, maybe sitting in the corner of a cafe so people can't come up from behind you, and also sitting in places where people are quite busy so they're not paying attention to what you're doing. And if it is too nerve-wracking, then one of the things that you can do is have other people around you as well. That's what I did when I was starting off, and having some family or some friends sat there with you, whether they're painting or not, can really take the edge off and make it an even more enjoyable social experience. Another thing that really helped was practicing the technical aspects of drawing and painting. So doing that at home where there is no pressure, learning things like perspective, learning how to mix colours. This just meant that I'm a bit more comfortable with the practice of drawing and with the practice of painting when I'm outside. So that just takes off a bit of the pressure as well. And things that you can do to help with this are watching YouTube videos or reading books, or even something as simple as joining a class, practicing drawing from life at home. It doesn't have to be a building, it can just be still life. Just getting in the habit of drawing from life. All these things make a difference, but essentially practice, and good quality practice, because it's different to drawing from pictures. The more comfortable you get from drawing things that are three-dimensional and right in front of you, the more comfortable you will be when you do it outside as well. And that's pretty much it. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a series, so you should check out my Instagram at Sketches.n.Scrubs if you want to see more. But I thought it would be nice to show you some clips, and then you can tell me which one out of all of these is your favourite. So starting off, this is Drunch, which I actually painted in two ways, one more realistic and two more stylized. This definitely had a really nice aesthetic, with small touches like designer brands on the coffees and a teddy bear and florals. So it's a small cafe with a nice vibe. Next we have EL&N Cafe that had beautiful, beautiful florals, bright and pink. The staff were friendly, the area was really nice, and to top things off, they had really nice cakes. Then we go on to Aubaine, which were in Selfridges. So this is technically a restaurant, but the staff were again super nice to me and kind enough to let me paint while I waited for my sisters to arrive. It had amazing food and a wonderful sophisticated atmosphere. So yeah, I highly recommend. And then last but not least, St. Aymes. This was the first cafe that I ever painted, and I was just so amazed by how beautiful it was. It's known as London's prettiest cafe, and I can see why. It has a wonderful, luxurious atmosphere, and what made it even extra special is the fact that the owners were there and were just incredibly nice, incredibly humble, and made it a wonderful experience for all of us. So that's just a snapshot of the 5 that I have been to. Let me know which one is your favourite down below, and obviously in addition there's the Peggy Porschen one that I have just done. So yeah, if you'd like to see more, then check out my Instagram at Sketches.n.Scrubs, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can catch my weekly videos. This is just a sneak peek of another cafe that I went to. Do you want to see an urban sketching video of this cafe? Let me know down below in the comments. If you have any other questions about the places, then hit me up in the comments with that too. See you next week.